The Vanishing of SS President, a legend lost to the Atlantic. Now, we travel to a mystery rooted deep in history, one that takes us back to the early 19th century era, when steam-powered ships were just beginning to navigate the vast Atlantic, a body of water that served both as a route and a perilous challenge. This is the tale of the SS President, a ship that embarked with grand ambitions but was never seen again. Launched in 1840, the SS President was once considered one of the most impressive ships of its time. Spanning approximately 245 feet in length, she was part of a new class of vessels combining the efficiency of steam power with traditional sails. Built in London and operated by the British and American Steam Navigation Company, the President symbolized the dawn of a new era of speed and luxury on the transatlantic route between Liverpool and New York, a vital connection as international travel across the Atlantic became increasingly common. Her maiden voyage that same year was a success, and for a while, the President earned a reputation as a fast and dependable way to cross the ocean. However, beneath her polished image, there were concerning issues. The President was larger and heavier than many ships of her time. Engineers were still figuring out how to best integrate steam propulsion with traditional sails, and some passengers noted that she struggled in rough waters. Her low profile in the water raised concerns about her stability, and there were speculations that her design made her more susceptible to flooding in turbulent seas. On March 11, 1841, the President set sail from New York for what would tragically be her final journey. Carrying 136 passengers and crew, along with precious cargo and mail, the ship was bound for Britain. The weather, however, was far from favorable. The ship sailed straight into a fierce North Atlantic winter storm, a gale that lashed the eastern seaboard for days. But in an era before reliable communication methods like radio, little was known about the President's progress as she fought through the tempest. When the ship failed to arrive in Liverpool on time, worry began to grow. Weeks passed, then months, but no word or trace of the vessel surfaced. No debris, no lifeboats, no bodies, nothing. The ship had simply vanished into the vast expanse of the Atlantic, leaving only questions behind. In the years that followed, the disappearance of the President became one of the earliest great mysteries of the steamship era. Various theories emerged regarding the cause of her loss. Some believed the ship had been overwhelmed by the storm, her low profile causing waves to cascade over her deck, flooding her engine room and hold, eventually sinking her. Others speculated that a mechanical failure had been to blame. As an early steamship, the President was a complex and often unpredictable machine. Any number of issues could have caused her boilers, rudder, or propeller to fail. One theory even suggested that the ship had collided with an iceberg, although no evidence was ever found to support this. As the decades passed, the story of the President was eclipsed by newer maritime tragedies, the Titanic, the Lusitania, and many others. Yet, the President remains significant in maritime history, being one of the first major steamship disappearances, serving as a stark reminder that even the most advanced technology could not conquer the sea. To this day, the wreckage of the SS President has never been found. Somewhere beneath the cold waters of the North Atlantic, her iron hull likely lies, slowly decaying in the deep. But without even a confirmed location, her final resting place remains shrouded in mystery. The President has become a ghost ship in the way of drifting aimlessly through fog, but as a legend lost to time, a ship whose story was born the moment she disappeared. The fate of the President also serves as an important lesson for future shipbuilders and engineers. Her disappearance underscored the dangers of pushing technological limits too quickly, and for years afterward, ship design tended to favor more time-tested, conservative models over bold innovation. The sunken Armada of Truk Lagoon, a timeless graveyard, a place where the weight of history lingers on the ocean floor, and one of the most eerie and unsettling underwater burial sites in existence, tells a tale not of a single vessel, but of an entire fleet lost to the depths. Truk Lagoon, now known as Truk Lagoon, lies in the distant Central Pacific, part of the Federated States of Micronesia. From the surface, it looks like a tropical paradise, bomb-lined islands, crystal clear waters, and vibrant coral reefs brimming with life. However, beneath these picturesque waves, there lies something far different, an underwater graveyard of untold stories. Scattered across the lagoon's sandy bed are the remnants of over 60 ships and countless aircraft, all sunk during one of the most devastating air raids of World War II. This sunken fleet, often referred to as the Ghost Fleet of Truk Lagoon, is more than just a shipwreck. Location: it is an underwater time capsule, frozen in the very moment when destruction rained down from above. The story begins in 1944 during a military operation known as Operation Hailstone. Truk Lagoon had served as a key Japanese naval base, a vital stronghold, functioning as both a supply hub and staging point for operations throughout the Pacific. Its natural geography made it a perfect defense location, with its barrier reef acting as a natural fortress that shielded the ships anchored within. However, by early 1944, American intelligence had identified Truk as a strategic target, and on February 1st, the assault began. For 2 days, American aircraft relentlessly bombarded the lagoon. Warships, transport ships, tankers, and submarines were shattered by bombs and torpedoes. Aircraft were strafed on the runways. Warehouses and supply depots were leveled, and fires blazed across the islands as ammunition depots exploded. When the raid concluded, Truk Lagoon had turned into a massive cemetery for the Japanese fleet. Ships still burned as they sank beneath the water, dragging sailors, supplies, and secrets into the depths. In the years that followed, Truk Lagoon slowly faded from the news. The war came to an end, and the wreckage was left undisturbed. But for divers, it became legendary, a rare place where history, tragedy, and mystery converged. When the first diving expeditions arrived at Truk Lagoon in the 1960s, they were met with something almost unbelievable. The wrecks, now covered with vibrant coral and sea life, were strangely preserved. Cargo holds still contained tanks, trucks, aircraft parts, and, in some cases, human remains. Entire rooms were untouched, medical supplies lined shelves, uniforms hung from hooks, and personal belongings were left behind in the haste to abandon ship. It was as though the moment of the sinking had been frozen in time, preserved beneath the calm, clear waters. Exploring Truk Lagoon is not like diving at a typical shipwreck. These ships weren't lost to storms or accidents. They were violently torn apart in mere hours. Some ships lie upright, as though they are still anchored, awaiting orders. Others are tilted at sharp angles, their bows reaching toward the surface, while their sterns are buried deep in the sand. Many of the vessels were laden with munitions and fuel, and as they sank, they exploded, leaving jagged debris fields strewn across the seabed. One of the most famous wrecks, the San Francisco Maru, still holds its cargo of tanks, shells, and bombs, all visible to daring divers who venture into its dark interior. But it isn't just the wreckage that makes Truk Lagoon so eerie, it's the sense of presence. Many divers have described feeling watched, even when no one else is nearby. Some report hearing faint metallic clanging, as if something deep within the wrecks was shifting or moving. Others have experienced sudden equipment failures or currents that appear out of nowhere. These strange occurrences are easily dismissed as coincidence or nerves, but when enough divers report similar sensations, the eerie atmosphere becomes hard to ignore. Adding to the mystique, many of the wrecks still hold human remains. For Japanese families, Truk Lagoon isn't just a diving destination. It is a war graver, final resting place for thousands of sailors who died there. Divers have discovered skulls in engine rooms, bones scattered in cargo holds, and even entire skeletons still seated at workstations, as if their owners were frozen in time. This haunting combination of history and tragedy has made Truk Lagoon a unique destination, one where divers do more than explore. They come to pay their respects. Despite its beauty and historical significance, Truk Lagoon remains a difficult place to access. Its remote location makes expeditions both expensive and logistically complex. The wrecks themselves are gradually collapsing under their own weight, and the coral and sea life are eroding what was once solid steel. In a few generations, many of these vessels will be little more than rusted remnants. Efforts to document the fleet continue, but time is running out. The mystery of Truk Lagoon doesn't come from how the ships were lost. The story of Operation Hailstone is known in vivid detail. Instead, the mystery lies in what the wrecks leave behind. Each ship tells a tale not just of war, but of lives interrupted. Every artifact, every faded letter, and every rusted tool serves as a window into the past, reminding us that these were once vibrant vessels, manned by sailors who never expected their end would come beneath the waves. Some believe Truk Lagoon still hides secrets, waiting to be uncovered, documents, weapons, or even hidden technologies that sank with the fleet. Others see it as a sobering reminder of how swiftly power can crumble, and how even the mightiest armadas can be reduced to silence and quarrel. Regardless of interpretation, Truk Lagoon is more than just a dive site. It is a testament to the endurance of history, to its ability to haunt, and to remind us that some stories, no matter how much time passes, will never stay buried. The vanishing of the MV Raifuku Maru, an ocean's enigma. Without any warning or explanation, we now journey eastward to the Pacific, where another vessel, the MV Raifuku Maru, became the center of one of the ocean's most peculiar maritime mysteries. This Japanese freighter's tale is a chilling blend of tragedy, unexplained events, and eerie final transmissions, a ghost ship story entwined with the dangers of the notorious Bermuda Triangle. The MV Raifuku Maru was a Japanese cargo ship launched in the early 1920s, operating at a time when maritime trade was expanding across both the Pacific and Atlantic. Built to transport grain, the freighter was robust, durable, and well-equipped to withstand the harsh conditions of the open ocean. In April 1925, the Raifuku Maru set sail from Boston, headed for Hamburg, Germany, carrying a full cargo of wheat. Its journey would take it directly through an area of the Atlantic, already known for dangerous weather patterns and strange occurrences, what would later become infamous as the Bermuda Triangle. Initially, everything about the voyage seemed ordinary. The ship and its crew were experienced, the cargo was securely stored, and weather reports were generally favorable. However, somewhere in the vast ocean, disaster struck. On April 21, 1925, a panicked distress call was received from the Raifuku Maru. The radio operator broadcast a chilling message: "Danger like a dagger now. Come quick." That was the last communication, as it was abruptly cut off, leaving no further messages. Nearby vessels, including the steamship SS Ourang, immediately changed course and rushed toward the Raifuku Maru's last known position. Upon their arrival, they found nothing: no wreckage, no lifeboats, no survivors, just an empty, endless ocean. What made the Raifuku Maru's disappearance so disturbing was the peculiar tone of the distress call. It wasn't a routine SOS. It was filled with panic and strange imagery, as if the crew had encountered something far beyond the usual dangers of storms or mechanical malfunctions. The phrase "danger like a dagger" now seemed to hint at a threat more sudden, terrifying, and perhaps impossible to explain. This unusual phrasing led to speculation that the Raifuku Maru had fallen victim to something extraordinary, whether it was a rogue wave, an underwater explosion, or some other phenomenon that defied easy explanation. One theory proposes that the ship encountered a rogue weaver, massive, unpredictable wall of water that can appear out of nowhere and is capable of sinking even the most sturdy vessels. While these giant waves were once considered a maritime legend, they have since been scientifically confirmed. In the 1920s, however, the idea that a single wave could engulf an entire freighter would have been unimaginable. If the Raifuku Maru had been struck by such a wave, it could explain the distress call and the lack of debris. Others have linked the Raifuku Maru's disappearance to the growing legend of the Bermuda Triangle. Although the ship technically vanished just north of the area commonly associated with the Bermuda Triangle, the incident fits the patterns in Disappearance, eerie radio transmissions, and no trace left behind. For those who believe in the paranormal reputation of the Bermuda Triangle, the Raifuku Maru became another piece of evidence pointing to a place where ships and planes mysteriously vanish under impossible circumstances. Weather could also have played a role in the freighter's fate. Although the initial forecast was calm, the North Atlantic is notorious for its ability to change rapidly. It's possible that the ship encountered a sudden storm or squall, capsizing before the crew had a chance to deploy lifeboats or send any further messages. Since no survivors could recount the details, everything after that desperate call remains pure speculation. Some have even suggested a mechanical failure, such as a cargo shift or an explosion in the hold. But these theories fail to account for the strange, poetic nature of the radio message. Ships in distress usually send direct, clear messages via flooding. Engine trouble but danger like a dagger now sounded more like a cry of existential fear, as though the crew was witnessing something they couldn't express in practical terms. This adds a layer of mystery, as it suggests that the crew might have encountered something outside the realm of normal maritime disasters. The mystery deepens further because the Raifuku Maru was not an ancient, creaking vessel. It was modern for its time, relatively new and equipped with the cutting-edge technology of 1925, including a radio. It was more than capable of handling a routine voyage. Her captain, Isuku Tachibana, was seasoned, and her crew had successfully completed similar trips before. There was no indication that anything out of the ordinary would occur on this journey, yet something unknown and sinister consumed her. Even decades later, the Raifuku Maru remains a key part of maritime mystery lore, often cited in lists of eerie disappearances and ghost ship stories. It's one of those tales that doesn't provide enough facts to reach a conclusion, but offers just enough to keep the mystery alive. The final message, urgent and cryptic, has solidified the Raifuku Maru's place in the annals of oceanic enigmas. What did the crew see? What force struck so suddenly and violently that not even a scrap of wreckage was left behind? How did an ordinary cargo journey become one of the most bizarre missing ship cases in maritime history? Much like the SS Eurydice, the Raifuku Maru reminds us that the ocean is a vast and mysterious expanse that holds its secrets close. Ships can vanish, leaving behind only eerie clues and unanswered questions. Yet, where the Eurydic's silence invites speculation, the Raifuku Maru's final message lingers like a ghostly whisper from the depths, a haunting reminder that some mysteries don't disappear, they only grow more enigmatic with time. The Enigma of the Seabird, a ghost-shipped mystery. Now, we turn our attention to a much older and equally perplexing maritime mystery, one that has left historians and sailors pondering the true fate of a vessel that set sail as planned, only to be discovered chillingly abandoned as if its crew had simply vanished into thin air. This is the story of the Seabird, one of the most enduring and mysterious ghost ship legends in American maritime history. The Seabird was a merchant brig that sailed along the Atlantic coast of North America during the mid-18th century. Unlike many other ships in similar tales, its disappearance didn't involve a slow sinking or a tragic wreck dashed against the rocks. Instead, it was found eerily intact, drifting just off the coast of Newport, Rhode Island, sometime in the 1750s. What made this discovery so unsettling was that, while the ship itself was perfectly seaworthy, its crew was nowhere to be found. There were no signs of a struggle, no distress signals, nothing to explain why the ship had been abandoned. It was as though everyone aboard had simply disappeared without a trace. When local fishermen first spotted the vessel aimlessly drifting toward the shore, they feared the worst perhaps. A pirate attack, a sudden storm, or even an outbreak of disease had claimed the lives of those aboard. However, when they climbed aboard, they found something even stranger. The Seabird was still stocked with provisions. Its cargo remained undisturbed, and even the crew's personal belongings were left behind, as though the sailors had every intention of returning at any moment. The only living creature on board was a dog, which appeared to have survived whatever had occurred. Over the centuries, Numerous theories have emerged to explain the seabird's fate. Some believe that the ship was abandoned due to a sudden storm or strong currents, which may have forced the crew to evacuate in a panic. Others speculate piracy, though the untouched cargo contradicts this idea. One more outlandish theory suggests that the crew may have encountered something entirely beyond their comprehensions, something so frightening that it compelled them to abandon their ship without warning. The seabird itself did not vanish entirely. According to certain accounts, the ship was salvaged and given a new name, the Beach Bird. It continued to sail for years before ultimately being lost to history. However, the mystery of what happened to its crew remains unsolved. What could have caused an entire ship's company to abandon their vessel, leaving behind their personal belongings and their livelihood? The seabird's tale continues to captivate the imagination, standing as one of the earliest and most perplexing ghost ship mysteries in recorded history. From eerie, abandoned vessels to entire fleets swallowed by the sea, some mysteries extend far beyond a single ship. Few places in the world hold as many maritime secrets as Truk Lagoon place, where entire armadas vanished in the blink of an eye. And so, the seabird's fate remains a haunting enigma, just one piece of the larger, unsolved puzzle of the ocean's most chilling mysteries. The phantom ship of the seas. The tale of the Flying Dutchman. Transitioning from the tragic fate of the Barango, we now delve into a legend that lies in the realm between history and myth, tales so enduring that it has become a cornerstone of maritime folklore. The story of the Flying Dutchman, shrouded in mystery, has persisted for centuries, but beneath the spectral legend lie fragments of truth, accounts from sailors who swear they've seen an impossible ship drifting through storms, glowing in the mist. Whether it's a warning, a curse, or something else entirely, the Flying Dutchman continues to haunt the seas. The legend of the Flying Dutchman first emerged in the 17th century, a period when the world's oceans were teeming with trade ships, naval vessels, and explorers pushing the boundaries of the known world. According to the tale, the Flying Dutchman was a Dutch ship captained by Hendrik van der Decken. The story says the ship set sail from the Netherlands, headed for the East Indies. But when it reached the Cape of Good Hope, located at the southern tip of Africa, it encountered a ferocious storm. Despite the desperate pleas of his crew, Captain van der Decken refused to turn back. Instead, he cursed the sky and swore that his ship would complete its journey, even if it took eternity. This ill-fated oath became his doom. According to the legend, the Flying Dutchman was condemned to sail the oceans forever, never able to dock, and appearing as a ghostly spectre to those who crossed its path. Sailors feared seeing the Flying Dutchman, believing it to be a harbinger of doom, a warning that their own ship would soon face disaster. While the tale might seem purely mythical, there are actual historical sightings that have helped keep the story alive. One of the most notable reports came in 1881 when the future King George V of England, then serving as a midshipman aboard the HMS Banty, claimed to have seen the Flying Dutchman off the coast of Australia. His official log recorded a glowing phantom ship that vanished when the Banty drew near. Later that night, the lookout who had first spotted the ghostly ship fell to his death, further enhancing the ship's reputation as an ominous sign of impending doom. Even earlier reports from sailors around the Cape of Good Hope describe sightings of strange ships. Some accounts detail the ship sailing directly into the wind with its sails fully unfurled, defying the natural laws of the sea. Others claim to have seen the vessel glowing with an unnatural light, illuminating the dark waves surrounding it. These sightings were often followed by a shipwreck or a calamity, further cementing the Flying Dutchman as a foreboding presence of the sea itself. Although no physical evidence of the Flying Dutchman has ever been found, historians and researchers have speculated about its origins. Some believe the story might be linked to a real ship lost near the Cape of Good Hope, perhaps in one of the fierce storms that frequently ravaged the region. The Cape has long been known for its sudden, violent storms and towering rogue waves, which could easily cause ships to disappear without a trace. It's easy to imagine sailors filling the silence of these disappearances with tales of a cursed ship forever lost between life and death. Others believe the Flying Dutchman may have been the result of a natural optical illusion, mirage, known as Fata Morgana, where light bends over the horizon, creating the illusion of a ship sailing in the sky or glowing unnaturally. In the days before radar and weather satellites, sailors had to rely on their eyes to navigate the vast oceans. And when they saw something that defied explanation, folklore was born. The Flying Dutchman's tale has persisted even into the 20th century, with reports of strange glowing vessels seen in storms near the Cape. Despite the presence of modern technology, the sea remains a place where rational explanations falter, and where tales whispered by sailors continue to echo through time. In many ways, the Flying Dutchman represents the very essence of maritime mystery, a story born of fear, amplified by the unknown, and passed down by those daring enough to venture into perilous waters. Whether Captain Vanderdecken was a real historical figure or simply a product of frightened minds, the legend of the Flying Dutchman lives as a reminder that the sea guards its secrets closely, and that some ships, it seems, never stop sailing. The ghostly light of the Palatine, a legacy of tragedy and mystery. Emerging from the haunting disappearance of the MV Raifuku Maru, we now turn to a mystery that fuses maritime tragedy with one of America's oldest ghost ship legends. This time, the tale takes us to the cold waters off the coast of Rhode Island, where the story of the Palatine Light has endured for over 250 years. What begins as a grim narrative of human suffering aboard a doomed ship gradually transforms into a legend of a ghostly apparition that still haunts the sea. Today, a glowing phantom ship, the locals swear, still appears on stormy nights. The tale begins in 1738, when a ship known as the Princess Augusta, which is now commonly referred to as the Palatine, set sail from Rotterdam, carrying over 150 passengers bound for the American colonies. Most were German immigrants fleeing war, poverty, and persecution in search of a new life. What began as a journey filled with hope quickly became a saga of misfortune, as the Palatine earned a reputation for being cursed from the start. Severe storms battered the ship as it crossed the Atlantic. Provisions dwindled dangerously low, and in some versions of the story, the captain and crew turned on the passengers, extorting money, withholding food, and even resorting to violence. By the time the ship reached the waters off Block Island, just south of Rhode Island's mainland, it was already on the brink of disaster. What happened next blurs the line between history and myth. Some accounts claim that the ship ran aground on the rocky shores of Block Island during a brutal winter storm. Others suggest that the residents of Block Island, known for scavenging wrecked ships, lured the Palatine onto the rocks by setting misleading fires on shore, a practice known as false lights. The ship was shattered, and many passengers drowned in the icy waters. Those who made it to land didn't fare much better, reportedly dying from exposure, starvation, or at the hands of the wreckers. Some accounts even describe locals murdering survivors for their valuables. It seemed that the Palatine had met its tragic end, but the tale of the Palatine Light was just beginning. In the years following the disaster, residents and sailors began reporting sightings of a strange flickering light off the coast, an eerie glow floating above the waves. Some described it as a ghostly ship engulfed in flames, silently drifting just beyond the breakers. Others saw a glowing orb weaving back and forth across the horizon. These appearances were unpredictable, but always seemed to occur during storms or on cold winter nights, conditions eerily similar to those that sealed the fate of the Palatine. The legend grew, and by the 19th century, the ghost light had become as famous as the shipwreck itself. To this day, the Palatine Light remains one of America's most enduring maritime ghost stories. Skeptics have proposed various explanations for the phenomenon. Some believe the light is a form of St. Elmo's fire, an atmospheric electrical discharge that can appear around ship masts or above the water's surface during storms. Others suggest that it could be bioluminescent marine life disturbed by turbulent waters, or even reflections from distant lighthouses. However, none of these theories fully account for the consistency of the sightings or the widespread reports of a spectral ship engulfed in flames. The Palatine light holds a deeper significance, intertwining themes of human desperation, betrayal, natural disaster, and lingering tragedy. Whether the Palatine was intentionally wrecked or met a natural end, the idea that the suffering of its passengers could leave behind some kind of ghostly echo is a compelling one. Even today, locals claim that the light occasionally appears, a spectral reminder of greed, cruelty, and the unforgiving nature of the sea. Unlike many ghost ship legends, the Palatine disaster is grounded in historical documentation. Records confirm the ill-fated voyage of the Princess Augusta, though the details vary depending on the source. Some 18th century accounts describe the wreck in graphic terms, noting that the ship was cast away on Block Island and that many passengers perished. Other versions, particularly those passed down orally on Block Island itself, emphasize the legend, stories of murderous wreckers, and vengeful spirits. Over time, the line between fact and folklore has blurred, as it often does with maritime tales. In recent years, historians have revisited the Palatine legend, attempting to separate verifiable facts from myth. Most agree that a ship did indeed wreck off Block Island in 1738, and that some of its passengers likely met terrible fates. However, the truth behind the Palatine light, whether it is atmospheric phenomena, a case of mass hallucination, or something truly paranormal, remains elusive. Even if the light itself is a natural occurrence, the story's power comes from what it represents. A haunting reminder of the perils faced by those who risked everything to cross the Atlantic in search of a better life. Ultimately, the Palatine light exists in that strange, captivating space between history and myth. It's a story born from real suffering, amplified by the imaginations of those who lived near the sea and kept alive by the countless eyes that have seen something flickering in the darkness. Whether it's a ghost ship, a weather trick, or something else entirely, the Palatine light ensures that the Palatine, or at least its legend, will never truly fade. From tragedy to ghost story, its transformation is complete, leaving behind not just a mystery but a warning. Some ships are doomed to sail forever, even if only in the stories we tell. The Enigma of the Zebrina, a ship lost to time. From the ticking time bomb that is the SS Richard Montgomery, a ship still holding the potential for disaster decades after its abandonment. We now turn to a different maritime mystery, one that involves a vessel whose disappearance, and later discovery, raised more questions than answers. Unlike the Montgomery, which remains a visible threat, the Zebrina was a ship that simply vanished, only to reappear under the most unusual circumstances, a completely intact vessel with its cargo untouched. Yet not a single member of its crew was ever found. What happened to the Zebrina, and how could a ship remain so perfectly preserved while being entirely abandoned? The Zebrina was a schooner barge, built in 1873, designed for short trade routes along the English Channel. Measuring just over 100 feet long, it wasn't a particularly large or notable vessel, at least not until its mysterious final voyage. By 1917, during the height of World War I, the Zebrina was used primarily for transporting coal and other cargo between British and French ports. It wasn't an armed ship, nor considered a high-value target, but that didn't mean the waters it sailed in were safe. German U-boats lurked beneath the surface, preying on merchant vessels as part of a large naval blockade, sinking hundreds of ships during the war. On September 17, 1917, the Zebrina set sail from Fouth, England, heading for Sambuc, France, with a load of coal. The voyage should have been short and straightforward, with only 5 men aboard. However, as the days passed, no word came of the ship's arrival. By all accounts, it had disappeared into the war-torn waters of the English Channel, likely becoming another victim of the deadly submarine warfare that plagued the region. But then something strange occurred. Just 2 days after its departure, the Zebrina was found drifting near Cherbourg, France. The ship was completely intact. There was no visible damage to its hull, and its cargo was untouched. It was as if the vessel had been abandoned in an instant. Yet, Despite the ship's seemingly flawless condition, one critical thing was missing. Every single member of the crew had vanished without a trace. There were no signs of a struggle, no distress signals, and no evidence of what had happened to them. It was as if the crew had simply stepped off the ship and disappeared into thin air. One of the most plausible theories suggested that a German U-boat had intercepted the Zebrina, captured its crew, and then left the ship to drift. This was a common practice during the war, as U-boat commanders would often surface to board merchant vessels, either taking the crew as prisoners or forcing them into lifeboats before sinking the ship. However, in this case, something didn't add up. If the Zebrina had been boarded by the enemy, why had it been left completely undamaged? Typically, U-boats either sank their targets or scuttled them to prevent them from returning to service. The fact that the Zebrina was found in perfect condition made this theory difficult to confirm. Another possibility was that the crew, fearing an imminent U-boat attack, had abandoned the ship preemptively. If they believed they were being targeted, they might have taken to the lifeboats, hoping to be rescued. But if that was the case, why was there no trace of them? Lifeboats, especially in the busy waters of the English Channel, were frequently spotted by other ships. No reports of drifting lifeboats or stranded sailors surfaced, raising more questions about what had truly happened. There is also the eerie theory that some sudden, unexplained event, perhaps a freak accident, an illness, or even a mass panic, led the crew to abandon ship under mysterious circumstances. Yet, if they had left voluntarily, why were no supplies missing? Why were no distress signals sent? The Zebrina was eventually towed into port, but the fate of its crew remained a mystery. The ship, however, would continue to sail for years. After being recovered, it was put back into service, passing through several owners, before being converted into a houseboat by the late 1930s. Its days as a seafaring vessel ended, and it was left to decay along the riverbanks. Yet, its legend endured. A ship found in perfect condition, but with no crew aboard, a vessel whose entire crew had vanished into the fog of war, never to be seen again. Unlike other ghost ships that drifted across the ocean for years, the Zebrina was recovered quickly. Still, it offered no more answers than the crew that had disappeared. The mystery of the Zebrina remains unsolved, adding to the long list of maritime enigmas that continue to baffle historians and sailors alike. The tragic fate of HMS Eurydice, a tale of ghostly returns. Shifting from the realm of myth to a more grounded tragedy, we now focus on a story that is just as haunting, though far less legendary. This is the tale of HMS Eurydice, a ship whose fate became one of the most notorious peacetime naval disasters in British history, and whose ghostly presence has been reported ever since. The Eurydice was a 26-gun Royal Navy frigate constructed in 1843, originally built as a formidable warship. Its purpose evolved over time. By the late 1870s, it was repurposed as a training vessel, tasked with preparing young sailors for the harsh realities of life at sea. The Eurydice was known as a dependable ship, a remnant of a bygone era when wooden sailing. Frigates ruled the seas, and seamanship depended on reading the skies and trusting the wind. But fate had other plans for her, turning her from a training vessel into a tragic, cautionary tale. On March 6, 1878, HMS Eurydice departed from Bermuda, bound for Portsmouth, England. On board were nearly 400 crew members and trainees, mostly young men eager to finish their training and return home. The journey across the Atlantic was largely uneventful, and by March 24th, the Eurydice was nearing the Isle of Wight, just off England's southern coast. It should have been the final stretch of a successful voyage, with the familiar shoreline now in sight. But nature had other ideas. As the ship passed the island, a sudden and ferocious snow squall swept in from the west, striking the Eurydice with almost no warning. The storm hit so swiftly and violently that the ship's crew was caught completely unprepared. Within moments, the Eurydice was overwhelmed. Her sails, still unfurled to catch the fair winds leading her home, were filled with the force of the storm. The ship heeled hard to one side, and water poured in through the open gun ports. The Eurydice capsized within minutes. For hundreds of sailors aboard, there was no time to react. Of the nearly 400 men on board, only 2 survived. They clung to floating debris until they were eventually rescued. The rest, officers and trainees alike, were lost with the ship, their bodies either dragged into the icy waters or trapped within the overturned hull. The disaster sent shockwaves through the nation, especially during a time when the Royal Navy was seen as a symbol of global power. The loss of a ship so close to home was unimaginable. Newspapers covered every grim detail, and the public mourned the needless loss of so many young lives. The wreck of the Eurydice was eventually found and partially salvaged, but the ship's story did not end there. Almost immediately following her sinking, sailors and local residents began reporting strange occurrences off the Isle of Wight. On calm days, when the sea was still, witnesses claimed to see a fully rigged sailing frigate ghosting across the horizon, her sails billowing even though there was no wind. People swore it was the Eurydice returning again and again to the spot where she sank. Some sightings were so vivid that passing sailors reportedly hailed the ghost ship, only to be met with silence before it faded from view. As the years passed, these sightings continued, cementing the Eurydice's reputation as one of Britain's most famous ghost ships. Even Prince Edward, the future King Edward VII, reportedly saw the spectral vessel while sailing near the Isle of Wight. He described it as a chilling and unforgettable sight. Skeptics have tried to explain the apparitions as mere mirages or optical illusions caused by light reflecting off the water. However, for many, the presence of the Eurydice's ghost serves as a haunting reminder of the sudden and tragic end she met. Various theories have been put forward to explain why the ship capsized so rapidly, ranging from errors in sail handling to flaws in her aging design. But the reality seems to be that the Eurydice was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, caught between the calm safety of home and the violent fury of a storm that gave no warning. Today, the wreck of the Eurydice lies beneath the waters, but her story, like her ghost, remains a lingering presence, a chilling reminder of a disaster that claimed so many lives in a ship, forever caught between the realms of the living and the dead. The mysterious disappearance of the High Aim 6, a modern maritime enigma. The wreck of the SS Valencia stands as a chilling reminder of the ruthless nature of the ocean, an unforgiving force where ships are swallowed by the waves. Lifeboats vanish into the night, and eerie sightings persist long after the disaster. However, not every maritime enigma involves a shipwreck. Some vessels do not sink but simply disappear, leaving behind more questions than answers. One such case is the mystery of the High Aim 6, a ghost ship found drifting aimlessly across the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, a modern-day riddle that defies explanation, not due to the manner in which it was lost, but because of what was left behind. The High Aim 6 was a modest Taiwanese fishing vessel designed for lengthy voyages at sea. In late 2002, it departed the port of Luchu, Taiwan, with a crew of 10, including the experienced captain, Chun Tai-chung. The ship's mission was straightforward: catch fish and return home. However, weeks passed with no word from the vessel. By January 2003, it had missed its scheduled check-ins, causing concern. In the vast and unpredictable expanse of the open ocean, where ships often vanish without a trace, a delayed return was not entirely out of the ordinary. Yet, on January 8, 2003, an Australian Coast Guard patrol spotted the High Aim 6, drifting over 800 miles off the coast of Western Australia. The ship's name was clearly visible, but something was amiss. There were no signs of life aboard the vessel. The High Aim 6 appeared to be in perfect condition. There was no visible damage. No distress signals had been sent. The engine was running smoothly, and the fuel tanks were full. It was as if the ship had been abandoned in an instant. When Australian authorities boarded the vessel, they discovered that the supplies remained untouched. Personal belongings were still in the crew quarters, and while the ship's logbook was missing, everything else seemed to indicate that the crew had left in a hurry. In the storage areas, fresh fish were neatly packed in ice, as though the crew had been in the midst of their work before suddenly disappearing. There was no sign of a struggle, no indication that the crew had been forced to abandon the ship. Yet, all 10 men were gone. Authorities investigated every possible scenario. If pirates had attacked the ship, why was nothing stolen? If something mechanical had failed, why was the engine still functional? There were no signs of fire, no evidence of a rogue wave or storm. The high AIM 6 was still afloat and fully intact. The only clue came when investigators tracked down one of the missing crew members, an Indonesian fisherman. Upon locating him in Indonesia, he provided a vague and unsettling explanation. He claimed the rest of the crew had been murdered in a mutiny, leaving the high AIM 6 drifting without its crew. But why and where had they gone? Supriyanto never offered a full explanation, leaving authorities with more questions than answers. Some speculated that a mutiny had taken place, with the crew taking a lifeboat and disappearing into the ocean. But if that were true, why were no lifeboats from the high AIM 6 ever found? Another theory suggested that the crew might have been involved in illegal fishing or smuggling, and had intentionally abandoned the ship to cover their tracks. However, there was no solid evidence to support this claim. After being towed back to Taiwan, the high AIM 6 underwent extensive examination by investigators. Despite months of analysis, no new leads surfaced, and the fate of the crew remained one of the most perplexing maritime disappearances of modern times. The ship, fully functional and undamaged, drifted alone, devoid of any sign of struggle, and with no trace of its crew. The high AIM 6 has since become one of the most unsettling ghost ship mysteries of the 21st century. A riddle that may never be solved, but it's not the only vessel to be found eerily abandoned at sea. Sometimes, the ocean does not take the ship, it only takes the people aboard. And our next story delves into a mystery even more perplexing. The mystery of the SS Ourang Medan. A haunting disappearance. While the all-over ghost ship sends shivers down the spine due to its modern origins, the vast Atlantic Ocean is home to even more perplexing disappearances, where the fate of ships remains unclear. Some vessels disappear under circumstances so bizarre and unexplainable that they leave behind more mysteries than answers. Among these cases, no ghost ship is more chilling or enveloped in enigma than the SS Ourang Medan, a vessel whose entire crew was reportedly found dead under horrifying circumstances, with no explanation for what led to their demise. The tale of the Ourang Medan dates back to the late 1940s, in the aftermath of World War II. Although the precise details are murky, the most commonly accepted version suggests that the ship was a Dutch freighter traversing the Strait of Malacca, one of the world's busiest and most strategically vital waterways. The first sign of trouble occurred when a distress signal was intercepted by nearby ships. The message was cryptic and alarming. A Morse code operator aboard the Ourang Medan allegedly sent out a brief, frantic transmission stating all officers, including captain, dead, lying in chart room and on bridge, possibly whole crew dead. After a brief pause, the chilling words "I" followed, before the transmission was cut off entirely. Nearby ships responded to the distress call, tracing it to the general location of the Ourang Medan. When rescue teams arrived, they were stunned to find the freighter floating eerily in calm waters, seemingly untouched. No signs of damage, no apparent struggle, and no indication of any attack. Yet, what they discovered inside the ship was far more unsettling than anything they could have anticipated. The entire crew was found dead, their bodies sprawled across the deck, frozen in positions of sheer terror. Their mouths were open as if in silent screams, and their eyes were wide in fear, suggesting that they had witnessed something horrifying in their final moments. Even the ship's dog was discovered lifeless, its body twisted, seemingly overcome by the same terror that had claimed the crew. There were no visible wounds, no blood, no gunshot marks, and no indications of a violent struggle. The engine room remained intact, and the cargo was undisturbed. It was as if death had arrived suddenly, taking every soul aboard without a single trace of physical violence. The rescue crew, understandably shaken, attempted to tow the ship back to port for further investigation. However, before they could make progress, something even stranger occurred. Smoke began rising from the lower decks, quickly spreading throughout the vessel. Within moments, a fire erupted, engulfing the Ourang Medan in flames. The rescuers barely had time to retreat before a massive explosion shook the ship, sending it to the bottom of the ocean, lost forever. With it, the Ourang Medan took its secrets, leaving behind nothing but a ghost story whispered among sailors. Theories surrounding the fate of the Ourang Medan range from the plausible to the outlandish. Some believe the ship was involved in smuggling hazardous chemicals, perhaps leftover nerve agents from the war, which leaked and poisoned the crew. This could explain the absence of visible injuries and the crew's terrifying expressions, as certain chemicals are known to induce convulsions and facial contortions. Others suggest carbon monoxide poisoning, potentially from a malfunctioning boiler, a silent and invisible killer that could have overwhelmed the crew before they even realized what was happening. However, there are also more supernatural explanations. Some claim the Ourang Medan encountered something beyond the realm of the known world, an otherworldly force, a ghostly presence, or something lurking in the depths of the sea that struck down the entire crew. There are even theories that the ship was targeted by an unknown entity, an experiment gone awry, or perhaps an encounter with a UFO. The fact that the ship was destroyed before any real investigation could be conducted only adds to the intrigue, leaving behind only whispers of a ghost story that sailors continue to tell. Skeptics argue that the Ourang Medan may never have existed at all, and that the tale is nothing more than a legend, an exaggerated story passed down among sailors. Others suggest that the truth behind the Ourang Medan was deliberately erased, concealed for reasons unknown. Regardless of the speculation, there are no official records that confirm the existence of the Ourang Medan, while it remains one of the most eerie and haunting ghost ship stories ever told. Its true origins remain shrouded in mystery. While the Ourang Medan is steeped in ambiguity, not all maritime disappearances are as elusive. Some vanishings are documented in meticulous detail, leaving behind physical evidence and very real unanswered questions. The enigmatic fate of the Water Witch, a ship lost to time. The tale of the water, which is one steeped in eerie legends and mysterious occurrences that continue to puzzle maritime historians to this day. A ship whose disappearance and lingering lore have sparked endless speculation. The Water, which remains one of the most enigmatic ghost ship stories in history. Built in the mid-1800s, the Water, which was a schooner initially intended for trade along the eastern coast of the United States, renowned for her speed and dependability. She was a vessel capable of slicing through the waves with ease, making her a valuable asset for her owners. However, despite her stellar reputation, the Water, which would soon become synonymous with the unknown, more often discussed in hushed tones than celebrated for her successful voyages. On a fateful journey in the mid-1800s, the Water, which departed with a full crew and cargo, heading south along the coastline. The trip was expected to be uneventful, nothing more than a routine passage. Yet, as the days passed, and then weeks, there was no sign of the ship reaching her destination. There were no distress signals, no wreckage, and no word from passing ships. She had simply vanished. Initially, there was hope that the ship had been delayed by weather, perhaps blown off course by strong winds, or damaged and limping toward safety. However, as weeks turned into months, without any trace, that hope began to fade. The Water, which was officially declared lost at sea, another victim claimed by the unpredictable ocean, and her crew presumed dead. Then, the sightings began. Sailors and fishermen started reporting sightings of a ship that matched the Water Witch's description. Some claimed to have seen her drifting aimlessly, her sails tattered but somehow still afloat. Others swore they saw shadowy figures standing motionless on her deck, watching from afar before the ship vanished into the mist. The most chilling stories came from those who reported getting closer to the ship, According to legend, one vessel was able to hail the water witch and even send a boarding party aboard. Upon boarding, the crew was met with an eerie silence. The ship was intact, the cargo remained securely stored, and personal belongings were untouched. Yet, there was no sign of life. It was as if the crew had vanished mid-task, leaving everything behind. One sailor later described an overwhelming feeling of unease as they searched the vessel, as though they were being watched. Some even claimed they heard whispers on the wind, though no one was present to be speaking. Whether these stories were exaggerated with time or based on actual events is unknown, but they solidified the water witch's place in maritime legend. Eventually, sightings of the water witch ceased. If the ship had indeed been seen, it likely succumbed to the sea, dragged beneath the waves or worn down by the passage of time. Yet, the mystery endured. What had happened to the crew? Why was the ship found intact, yet deserted? If the ship had continued to drift long after being declared lost, who or what was navigating it? The water, which now stands as one of many haunting ghost ship legends, a story of the sea that still persists in maritime lore. Some theorize that the ship fell victim to a sudden storm, capsizing and casting her crew overboard, yet somehow leaving the vessel upright. Others propose more sinister explanations, such as mutiny, piracy, or even something supernatural at work. Whatever the truth may be, the water witch serves as a chilling reminder of the ocean's many mysteries. A ship that sailed into the unknown, never to return, and whose name is forever etched in maritime history. The vast and unforgiving ocean holds countless secrets, some of which we may never fully comprehend. From ghost ships that drift endlessly with no crew in sight, to vessels that vanish without a trace, the stories of the sea continue to captivate us. The deeper we delve, the stranger and darker these tales become. If you've enjoyed this journey into the unexplained, don't forget to subscribe and explore our other videos for more mysteries waiting to be uncovered. Thank you for joining us on this voyage.